Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fat Cat Scrap Podcast. We got the Fat Cat. Anyways, I'm your host, AJ Smith here. I'm going to bring you my thoughts on the things that are going on in boxing this weekend. So just looking at my notes here, we start off Deontay Wilder's returning, which is pretty exciting for some. I mean, for me, I'm still looking forward to it. I'm going to find a way to watch it. Um, he's a guy that's kind of had a following the last, couple years, different excuses kind of things coming from his camp, changing with trainers. It seems like he's moved on from Malik Scott, which I never really had a problem with Malik Scott. I think with a fighter like Wilder, he's a guy who's never really had a lot of, traditional, um, what we would see as like traditional, boxing skill. And just being one of those kind of fighters, he's always been a guy who's just relied on that right hand. So he's always a guy I'm going to be excited to see. I mean, even if this is the last hurrah for him, you know what I mean? He's given me a lot of entertainment over the years, so I certainly wouldn't mind tuning in against a guy Herndon, who I believe fought Michael Hunter. I don't know if that was his most recent fight, but like one of the more notable ones on his record. He was, I want to say, F.A. Jagba's like first fight of his professional career, so it's certainly not necessarily a guy that you're going to have, go in there to be a very game opponent and make for a good contest. I don't even think that undercard is much to talk about, but the fight's going to be in Wichita, Kansas. We'll see. I mean, I'd like to see Wilder maybe get, a fight with maybe an AJ or even someone else like that who are arguably, past their primes, and can, just give us a good show. To kind of send him off. I mean, he says he's, unifying world championship aspirations, and a lot of people are saying he's crazy, and maybe he is. He's a little bit delusional, but I mean, I think as long as he believes it, I mean, why not? I mean, he's in his 40s now. That's gonna have limitations, but he's always got that right hand, and even if against Zhang, Parker, it didn't seem like that power was necessarily as strong. I think with the right game plan, he's always going to be a game opponent for anybody. We got the Jake Paul versus Chavez fight. I feel like I was in the minority of people who actually did like the Paul Tyson event. Just in terms of outcome, I thought I'd like to see Mike get in there and show us, it's crazy for a man in his late 50s that he can still punch like that. Um, and, what he can still put his body through, as like still an athlete of sorts. And I think Jake showed some good boxing skill. They put on a great event highlighting, Serrano and Taylor. And I forget who else was on the undercard. Maybe, I don't know if it was Shushu, but, I think Jake's definitely one of those guys. He's a pay-per-view attraction. He's a big draw. He gets a lot of numbers. And I think in that Tyson fight, he paid enough respect to Mike. And I felt like it was a good outcome. You didn't want to see Mike get knocked out, but Mike still had his moments of, putting his body through things and, just trying to see what he could do, which I thought was impressive. So now moving on, we got a card out of Hull in the UK. Probably a little bit less heralded this weekend. Where we got Shakan Pitters and Bradley Ray for the EBU light heavyweight title. So we got Pitters, a guy who's 35 years old, coming in 6'6". Only losses to Dan Aziz and Craig Spider Richards. And Aziz, I remember watching Aziz and Buatsi go at it a couple years ago. So certainly not, names to be ashamed of losing to. Guy sort of coming towards the end of his career at the age of 35, but he's 6'6". It was funny, I'm looking at his record. He beat a guy, Dex Spellman, and I was like, I recognize that name. Where's that from? And I'm a big Anthony Yard fan. Dex Spellman was one of his opponents, I think, maybe like 5 or so years ago. And yeah, former English international champ. He's pretty fast for his size. He's got a pretty good jab. So we'll see. About 7 knockouts in his career. He promised a knockout in his most recent IFL press, but that could just be for camera. But you never know. Guy's 35. He's got to bring it. Going for that EBU title. And then Ray, a guy who I'm nicknaming the Lancashire Lomachenko, Lancashire. 27 years old. A loss to Tyler Denny, which I don't think is anything to be ashamed of. I am definitely a fan of Tyler Denny myself. And, he's gotten some other wins along the way, to the course of 10 knockouts, 6'3". As a light heavy, he hasn't been in this division for too long. But we'll see. He's clearly the younger guy. Some people online seem to think that he's going to have an easy job, an easy night. But I don't know. I think Pitters is definitely going to bring it. You look at this undercard. Looks like Hughie Fury had a fight with a Belgian. Forgive me for not knowing his name. But Hughie Fury pulled out with a hand injury. But it looks like the Belgian guy is still going to get an opportunity there. You see Shaquille Thompson from Yorkshire, Dr. Steele, his nickname. He's got a recent win over David Benitez, not to be confused with David Benavidez. That would be significant. Probably not have him on this card here, but you never know. Put it on for the locals. And then you got Sean McComb with the super lightweight division. See if he can put on a show here. And then Gemma Richardson, female fighter. She definitely did her thing in the youth games. Came up that way. Came out short for qualifying for the Olympics. I forget what the circumstances were for that, but for a female fighter, she's definitely a name to be put out there. But the card's titled Deep Water, and I'm actually very much so looking forward to it. I like these sort of like smaller hall shows. This one coming from Hull, Connection Live. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's definitely going to be a good one to tune in. Good atmosphere, things like that you look for. And then the only last thing I want to cover is my prediction for Chavez and Paul. Julio Cesar Chavez, these guys had his personal struggles over the years. He's been trying to stay in the ring, stay active here and there. But I believe he fought, Anderson Silva. And he hasn't looked good, and whether or not that's because of things coming outside the ring, he seems to be locked in. You see some of the training footage, media workouts, things like that. But I don't know. I just think this is traditional, simple Jake Paul, just doing his thing. He knows what he's doing here. If you want to call him being a weight bully, what have you. It's smart on his end to get, a former world champion in there. But at 48 years old, I just don't see, I don't think Chavez has ever fought at this heavy, and that's probably more the weight he kind of walks around at. So even if he has trained hard, I think Jake Paul comes out with the win. Even just look, I don't like Jake Paul, but even just looking at like these, preliminary stuff, face-offs, things like that. I can definitely respect Jake Paul for what he's doing. People seem to say, he's fighting these older guys and, just trying to get money out of the game. But, you can't really blame him in that sense. People are still watching, people are still tuning in. And yeah, I just think, I don't see Chavez being able to pull it off. It's hard with the language barrier and things like that to assess, especially as like someone like me watching, like what is his confidence level, but I feel like he just it's pre-fight, right? So it's all the mind games, the tactics, things like that, which I think can kind of go into whether you win or lose. But I think fights, are won and lost in the gym, and in your training. And it did kind of seem like Chavez wasn't 100% sure of himself. I know he's 48 years old and he's going up against a much bigger, much younger guy. So this clearly isn't prime Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. But we got going in there with a guy like Jake Paul, and he said he could see himself getting like a late knockout or maybe win by decision. And I think 48 years old, what have you, if you're a former world champion, you're going up against a guy like Jake Paul, regardless of the weight situation, I feel like you need to have the mentality of I'm knocking him out. This is not going to be close. And I don't know that I can necessarily just see that from Chavez, but I just think stylistically, weight wise, the guy's 48 years old, and I just don't see in this being a good night for him as much as I'd like to see him kind of have a bounce back of sorts. But yeah, that's going to do it for the boxing for the weekend. So I might have a video next week, just kind of recapping some of the things. I know it's been my first video in a minute, just kind of slow in getting to it, but yeah, we got some good cards this summer, so let's go Fat Cats all day.